bear safety. What should you do? What shouldn't you do? And what are the conflicting opinions online? And what do I do? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So first off, it's important to know what kind of bears you're going to be dealing with. Are they black bears? Are they grizzly bears? And are they park bears? And whenever I say black bear, that refers to any bears that are not grizzly bears. So they can be black, they can be brown, or they can even be cinnamon colored. Park bears are habituated black bears in usually national parks. So Yosemite, Yellowstone, things like that. Those types of bears are a completely different animal to be dealt with. But first, let's talk about black bears in general and a little bit about grizzly bears. So where I'm camped, there are black bears and there are a few grizzly bears and there's wolves, but we won't talk about the wolves. But here's what's on the picnic table where I'm camped at. These items should not be left outside. Store all food in vehicles or hard-sided campers. And here are some other signs I found after hiking around the area. So anything a bear might sniff out is considered a bear attractant. And just some tips for being in bear country. Avoid confrontation, odors attract bears, and keep a clean camp. And dogs antagonize bears, so keep your dog leashed. So when I started researching about bear safety, everything said, do not store food in your car. You're an idiot if you store food in your car. Well, where are you supposed to store it when you're camping in a minivan? That sign confirms what I've been doing, which is keeping the food in the van. So first off, let's talk about black bears. Black bears generally are not going to attack humans. They are after food. So black bears can smell from miles and miles away, and they will do just about anything to get the food. But they are scaredy cats. Mostly. Unless we're talking about the park bears, but we're going to get there in a minute. So my biggest line of defense is to control what the bears can smell. So what I do is, I keep all my food in my van, but what I do is I have all my food in these color-coded bags. So the yellow number 1 I know is breakfast. Yellow number 2 is lunch. So inside the bags, I have a smell-proof bag. So all of my food is stored in one of these smell-proof bags. And they are specifically sort of designed for wildlife to lock in all smells. I do that with my food as well as my trash. So this is my stinky trash in a bag, and it is all sealed away as well. Another thing that bears really love, other than food, are other smells like soap, toothpaste, deodorant, lotions, citronella, essential oils, anything that smells basically is pretty much going to attract them. So on this trip, I'm using a glass bottle filled with Dr. Bronner's unscented soap. Dr. Bronner's is biodegradable. It's just like Castile soap. And I've been using that for everything, for my hair, for my clothes, for my dishes, for my body. And it's worked pretty good. I got this little soap dispenser at Target. It's a little foaming dispenser. Works great. I brought unscented toothpaste. I brought unscented deodorant, unscented lip balm. That's a big one too. I basically don't want to have, fruity smells on my body. Black bears aren't known to attack humans, but, if I don't smell like a strawberry, that's probably a better thing. I also have my toiletry bag in a smell-proof bag as well. One of the places I don't have it completely figured out is my gray water. my gray water gets a little stinky from washing dishes. And I'm not really sure what to do about that, other than empty it somewhat regularly, dig a hole far away from my campsite, dump it in there. So that generates some smell in my van. And I've also been cooking in the van, and that generates smell. I've been using my rice cooker to cook rice, so I've kind of decided I think it's better if I cook it in the van rather than like cook it out on a rock or something where it's really going to be sort of more advertisement, is my theory anyway. Something else that I do kind of more on the offensive. So since bears have such great sense of smell, let's use that against them. Bears hate pine sol. They've done some studies where they put ammonia and pine sol and had the bears go up and sniff it. And the bears that smelled pine sol reared up and ran away. So you do want to be really careful with this though, because A, it's not healthy. I think if you get it in your eyes, you can go blind. And it's not good for the environment. So what I do is I spray it on my van. I don't put any in my gray water, anything like that, because I don't want this to be getting into the environment. So what I do is, I'll show you. So I spray the corners of my doors. Anywhere that I think smell is maybe going to come out a little bit, around the back door, that sort of thing. So that's my offense for the outside of the van. For the inside of the van, the reason why bears hate pine sol, well, it's probably all the crazy chemicals, but they hate the smell of pine. Ironic, right? So I have some pine oil, and I also have pine wafers. What the heck is a pine wafer? Well, hunters use them. They're these little plastic things, and they smell like a Christmas tree. And apparently you just put them back in their little case, and they sort of recharge their smell. You can hang them on your clothes, you can hang them inside the van. Sometimes I put them on the floor near the door. But they do melt in heat. They get all deformed in heat. So don't leave them in the car in hot places. With the pine oil, I put in a little sprayer with some water, shake it up, and I'll spray my bedding down, I'll spray my clothes down, that sort of thing, just to give a little bit more deterrence. So I think that's about it in terms of controlling smell and defending with smell. But another thing that I also do is whenever I leave the van, so if I'm leaving to go down to the river here to collect some water, or I'm going to go over and empty my gray water bucket, I always make sure to close my door, because there are smells in there. I've cooked, I've got my gray water, whatnot, and that is literally an open invitation to come ravage my van. And not just by bears. Squirrels can be extremely opportunistic and destructive, so make sure you close your doors all the time. And as an added precaution, I wear some bear spray around my waist. Just like I said, as I'm going down to the river to collect water, as I'm walking around the campsite, and even in the van, I usually have it on my waist. Black bears really don't need bear spray. You can theoretically scare them off pretty easily. If you just make some loud sounds, you yell, they take off like a scaredy cat. But there are some grizzly bears up here, and for the two-legged predators, it's nice to have some sort of deterrent on me. So I realized maybe not everyone knows what bear spray is. So basically it's like mega pepper spray. It comes in a canister like this, and I have it in a hip belt that goes around my waist here. So you hold it in your hand here, you pull out a little pin, and you can spray it at the bear. This is one of the most effective things you can do against a grizzly bear. Oh, and while we're at it, I also didn't tell you what grizzly bears look like. So you can always tell a grizzly bear because of this big hump on their back. That's the big defining feature of a grizzly bear. So if you were to see a grizzly bear, you would act much differently. You wouldn't make loud noises and try to scare them off. Basically, you get really quiet, you back away quietly, don't make eye contact, get your bear spray out, and hopefully they'll go away. So, bear spray or a gun are your best defenses against a grizzly bear. So, that's about it for the normal black bears. Next, let's talk about parkies, park black bears. These are black bears who will do absolutely anything for your food. They have been known to break into cars. They've been known to break windows. They can recognize a cooler in your front seat. So I have a cooler here in my front seat, and if I don't have my window shade up, I have it covered, just in case, if the black bears here have taken any lessons from the park bears. And these are the cases where people really say, don't keep food in your car, because they'll do anything for it. The park bears are much harder to deter. They aren't scared of humans. And they've figured out how to open cars. So, that's another tip, is when you're in the car, anytime, keep your car doors locked, because some bears can open the doors. So use caution when you're in national parks. And I've kind of made the decision myself that I just don't think I'm really going to visit those areas very much. Certainly not the most traveled areas and like park campgrounds. But one thing I forgot is when you are in a campsite that is that visited, there's usually a bear box, which is like a big, huge cabinet for every campsite. And that's where you can store your food. It's bear proof. It has a little latch that they can't get into. So do some research. If you're going to be visiting a heavily populated bear area, check to see if there's some bear canisters. And, if there's not, maybe think twice about camping there. Some of you might have questions about bear canisters now that I bring that up. Bear canisters are typically used by hikers. They're about this big. They hold a couple days of food, but they're mainly used just to make it so the bear can't get the food. The bear can still smell the food and can still be attracted by the food. The reason why campsite bear lockers work well is the bear can't drag it off. It's immovable. So unless you're backpacking, meaning you're putting all your stuff in your backpack, you're going up to the mountains and sleeping in the mountains with what you have. I wouldn't really recommend getting a bear canister for van life. So mostly bears can be scared off by humans. You can drive away. If a bear is bothering you at night, you can honk your horn. I have some alarms. I'll show you that in a minute. So while I'm down here at the river, I'm, just keeping my eyes around me, keeping an eye out. I've got my bear spray on my hip. And just, being aware of my surroundings. So I think it's important to remember when we're out here, we're part of a whole ecosystem. And there's a lot of animals out here, not just bears. There's deer and raccoons and all kinds of critters that can scare you in the night. So one of my mental tactics at night is to realize that, there's probably a lot of critters wandering around my van that I'm hearing. I don't really need to worry much if a bear is walking around my van. I'm safe in my van. If the bear starts to mess with my van, well, then it's a different story. If a bear does start messing with my van, then it's time to do something. And I can honk my horn. I can move my van. I can start it. I also have this little siren thingy. All you do is you pull this little ring out, and it emits a super high, loud, noisy screeching sound. So I'm sure that would scare anybody and anything and everybody away. And you can even throw it, a little sound grenade. So by following all those protocols, eliminating as much scent as I can from the van, sealing everything up in bags, keeping my doors closed when I'm not around for sure, having some deterrent smells that studies have shown that bears don't like, and just having a plan of what will I do here, that's what I will do. I don't need to worry about every single sound around my van. Although I do have a motion detector, which is nice. If I do hear something, this lights up and I can peek out and see what it is. Last night it was a couple deer that scared me. But for me, you know, it's a journey for me too. I'm not completely fear-free out here. And that's part of why I love coming out here, is that, you know, I'm part of an ecosystem. I'm part of nature, and there's a lot of things going on out here. There's a lot of different animals. I think we need to respect bears, but we don't have to be terrified of them. For me, controlling my fears and controlling my mental game is a skill that I'm happy to work on, happy to develop, and kind of being aware of my fears. So yeah, hopefully this helps clear up some things about should you keep food in your car, should you not keep food in your car. So I think the bottom line here is, if you're in a place with problem bears, especially if there are bear boxes at campsites, then take everything out of your van that smells and put it in those boxes. I wouldn't cook in my van in that case. If you're in a wild place like I am, there are bears around, but they're not completely habituated to humans. There's not a lot of problem bears. Then I think containing everything inside the car is pretty safe. So there you go. Take all my advice with a grain of salt. I'm not an expert, but I've had to sift through this stuff and try to determine, you know, what I felt comfortable doing and what I didn't feel comfortable doing. So now you know what I do, and you know what the sign on my camp table says. And if you have any questions, just type them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. If you have any tips or any experiences with bears, let me know in the comments. Let's see if we can come up with a better consensus of what are some best practices for bear country. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Stay safe out there and don't get too scared. Don't get so scared that you don't come out, because it's worth it. And yeah, all right, I'll see you later. Bye.